All right, Shalom. This is Jacob with the GMS Dallas camp. First off, I want to give all praises to Yahawah, Ba'ashem, YAHAWASHI, Ba'ashem, Rakakadash. Double honors to apostles and elders of Great Millstone who teach and rule well. Peace and blessings to the Akim scattered throughout the four corners, keeping his word in truth and sincerity. I'm going to go into Daniel, the 7th chapter. Lord willing, this will probably be a few part, or maybe 2 or 3 part video, just going into some of the history, what I'm saying, because this chapter, it shows you, and it breaks it down to you, and it literally tells you the breakdown of what those 4 beasts are, in the vision of Daniel, the 7th chapter, so and it's important to know that because it gives you an idea of where we would be in these times, and in the end times. What kingdoms will come. What kingdoms will rise up and fall. What kingdoms are going to be set up. Who's going to be ruling at that time, and it gives you a pretty good idea that a pretty good timeline. So I'm going to go into the first verse. It says, in the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and visions of his head upon his bed. Then he wrote the dream and told the sum of the matters. So, just like brothers have visions, they have dreams. Sometimes they'll do a video on it and explain they dream. I've seen videos of brothers doing it many times. So it's the same thing. Daniel had a vision, he had a dream, so he wrote it down, and he broke it down, right? It says, verse 2, Daniel spake and said, I saw in my visions by night, and behold, the 4 winds of the heavens strove upon the great sea. And that great sea is talking about the Mediterranean Sea during that time, or in that vision that he had. It's talking about the Mediterranean Sea, all right? So it says, verse 3, and I'll explain why. I'll tell you why right now, because those 4 beasts are in that, take place in that general area. The lion with the eagle's wings, the Assyrian Empire. The bear with the 3 ribs on its in its mouth. The Persian Empire, and like it says here, the leopard with the 4 wings of a fowl, the Grecian Empire, and the 4th beast, with the iron teeth, which is the Roman Empire. All residing in the Mediterranean Sea area. So it says, and the 4 in the verse 3, and the 4 great beasts. And 4 great beasts came out from the sea, diverse from one another, and that's how all kingdoms are that rose up in those times. One kingdom had different idols, different ideologies, different philosophies. Different religions and all that. The different types of politics. So it says. The first was like a lion and had eagle's wings. I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked. Okay, so that's talking about the Assyrian, Babylonian, or Assyrian / Babylonian Empire. Because Assyria had its ties. I don't want to say ties, but it was linked to the Babylonian Empire until, until really Babylon, took over. Took over, and was, pretty much made that made the head. So the first was like a lion and had eagle's wings. Going into the Assyrian Babylonian Empire, I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked, and I was lifted up from the earth and made stand upon the feet as a man, and a man's heart was given to it, which goes into King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon. It makes that reference if you read it in Daniel, I believe it's Daniel the 4th chapter, when it goes into the dream that Daniel had about the statue. Salaki, Daniel the 2nd chapter. Let me make sure I don't want to dreams. Let's pick out the incense. Yeah, so yeah, it was the Daniel the 2nd chapter where he had the dream. And then let's see, it says Daniel 2nd. Yeah, it goes into it in the 30th chapter, starting at the 31st chapter. The image head was of fine gold, which goes into Nebuchadnezzar. That's talking about Nebuchadnezzar, the head of gold, because he was like the best of the best king of Babylon that Babylon ever had, and it makes that reference of gold because really Babylon during that time was gonna be known as one of the greatest kingdoms, but also one of the most beautiful. One of its most of its not like America. It really degraded over time because it goes into the head of gold, the breast and his arms of silver, his belly and his thighs of brass, his legs of iron. You know what I'm saying? So over time, I'm saying that the beauty of these kingdoms over time degraded, from Babylon being one of the most greatest, most beautiful kingdoms in the world, all the way down to, let's say, America. America is one of the greatest kingdoms in the world right now. And look at it, man. It smells like sewage everywhere. You know what I'm saying? There's a smoke, carbon dioxide in the air everywhere. The water is shit. All the water is dirty. You know what I'm saying? People running around sick all the time. It's in the food. You know what I'm saying? So that, so anyways, yeah, I just wanted to make sure I said the right chapter. But let me go back to the 7th chapter. And it says, and a great beast came up. Okay. Verse 5, and behold, another beast, a second like to a bear, and it raised up itself on one side, and it had 3 ribs in the mouth of it, to between it the teeth of it. And they said thus unto it, arise, devour much flesh. And that goes into the bear going into the Persian Empire, or Medo-Persian Empire. All right. The 3 ribs represent the 3 parts of the world that it took over during its reign. And if I remember correctly, the 3 ribs are Libya, Syria, and damn, you know what? I don't remember. Here, let me see. I got a timeline here. Let me see if I can see it. Or you know what? Let me just Google Persian War. No, wait. Persian. Yeah, Persian Empire timeline. Let's see. Usually it gives you the okay, there it is. Oh, and Egypt. Man. Yeah, so it was Libya, Syria, and Egypt. Those 3 ribs. Okay, let me go back to where I was at, because I want to get back to this. But yeah, so the 3 ribs in its mouth goes into those 3 parts of the world or not part. Well, yeah, you know, those three kingdoms that Persia took a hold of. All right, and it says, and they said, thus unto it arise devour much flesh. You know, because that's what you do when you conquer these places. You know. And it says, verse 6, after this I beheld, and lo, another like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. The beast had also 4 heads, and dominion was given into it. Right? And that goes into the leopard talking about the Grecian Empire. And the 4 wings of a fowl represents the speed and the swiftness of that kingdom, man. Because if you go into the history of Alexander the Greek, he conquered many kingdoms in such a short span of time that it was like he was flying. Like that's why it goes into the wings of a fowl. Oh, as a matter of fact, if you go to Daniel the 8th chapter, it goes into detail between the Grecian and Persian wars that they had, and it tells you that. Let's see. Let's see. Yeah. So okay, let me back up a little bit. So, like it said in Daniel the 7th chapter, and it went into the bear with the 3 ribs in its mouth, going into the Persian Empire. How it, we talked about those 3 kingdoms that it took over. You know, Libya, Syria, and Egypt, right? So it goes more into detail in Daniel the 8th chapter, and it goes, verse 3, it says, then I lifted up mine eyes and saw, and behold, there stood before the river a ram which had 2 horns. Okay, that ram representing the Persian Empire, and the 2 horns going into how during that time it was known as Medo-Persia. You know, you had the Medes and you had Persia. You know, so it says, and the 2 horns were high, but one was higher than the other, and the higher came up last. You know, so and that goes into how over time Persia became greater than the Medes. You know, so that's why it was known as Medo-Persia, but then ultimately it just became Persia. You know, that horn coming up higher. All right, so it says, verse 4, I saw the ram pushing westward and northward and southward, which represents Libya, Syria, and Egypt. You know, not in that order, but, you know, so that no beast might stand before him, neither was there any that could deliver out of his hand, but he did according to his will and became great. You know, like it says in Daniel the 7th chapter, rise up and devour much flesh. Verse 5, and as I was considering, behold, an he-goat from the west, on the face of the whole earth, and touched not the ground, and the goat had a notable horn between his eyes. And that goes into the Grecian Empire being that goat and that notable horn between his eyes, talking about Alexander the Greek. All right, and it says, and he came to the ram that had 2 horns. You know, so that goes in. This is talking about a specific battle that happened between the Grecian Empire and the Persian Empire during Darius, the ruling of Darius III, which is known as the Battle of Gaugamela, if I'm pronouncing. So let me go to this timeline. So it says, let's see, this is during Philip's reign. If you go down, Alexander fights. And where it says 334, it says Alexander fights and wins against the Persians at the battle of the. Okay, that's not it, because they still got Macedonian forces under Alexander defeat the Persians at the battle of Issus. Alexander Greeks. Okay, there it is. 331 at the battle of Gaugamela, Alexander defeats the Persian king of Darius III. You know, so once he defeated King Darius III of the Battle of Gaugamela, that was it. He conquered Persia. Because if you go here, and he came to the ram, which is Persia, that had 2 horns, Medo-Persia, which had seen standing before the river, and ran unto him in the fury of his power. And I saw him close unto the ram, the Grecian Empire, and he was the Persian Empire, and he was moved with choler against him, and smote the ram, and smote the ram, and brake his 2 horns, and there was no power in the ram to stand before him. But he cast him down to the ground and stamped upon him, and there was none that could deliver the ram out of his hand, which goes into the defeat of the Persians at the Battle of Gaugamela, which really ended ended with that. Verse 8, therefore the he-goat waxed very great, and when he was strong, the great horn was broken, and for it came out 4 notable ones toward the 4 winds of the heaven. And that 4 notable ones is going into the 4 generals that overall usurped the power of Alexander the Greek, because Alexander the Greek ended up dying. Now, it shows you that in Daniel the 7th chapter as well. Let's see. Daniel spake and said, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the 4 winds of... verse 6. It says, after this I beheld, and lo, another like a leopard, right? The Grecian Empire, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl, which represents its swiftness and how quick it devoured these kingdoms. The beast had also 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. And that goes into the 4 generals, or the 4 notable ones, like it says in Daniel the 8th chapter, which goes into the 4 generals that took over and were given power after Alexander the Greek died. And that goes in, and you can go into that more. And it also goes into it in First Maccabees, the 1st chapter. And then it says, so those 4 generals is talking about Lysimachus, Cassanders, Ptolemy, and Seleucus. All right. And it says, so after that, right after that kingdom comes verse 7. It says, after this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast, dreadful and terrible, and strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with the feet of it, and it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. And that goes into the Roman Empire. It was the most powerful kingdom in the known world at that time. What I'm saying? Just like all these other ones were at their time, but this one was even more powerful. It said it had great iron teeth, going into its strength, its power, its military might, so it was during that time that really Rome had a really good, just like America right now. America has a pretty good, strong military. It's got all kinds of embassies throughout the, spread out throughout the whole world right now. And it's showing, and really it shows signs of how all the influences of these other kingdoms are here in America today, man. Because if you look at the democracy and the type of politics that go on in America, is the same thing that was going on in the Roman Empire. You have the Republicans and the Democrats, and in Rome they were known as the plebeians and the plebeians and Druids, I believe is the right term. It's lucky, I might be saying it wrong, but they had those two different opposing forces, just like you have here in America, and there's a bunch of other things too, but anyways, I'm gonna cut it short right here, but I will make a part 2 going into some of the history of the the fourth beast and the 10 horns. But yeah, Lord willing, brothers were got a bit of understanding going into the history. You know what I'm saying? So with that, shalom.